Welcome back, everybody. This is the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage, and I've been breaking up the restoration series videos on the Singer 301 that you see here. Doing that so you can watch a little bit at a time. Let's take a look here. So we've got the tension assembly, we've got all our parts, we're getting ready to reassemble it, and I need to hurry because we're going to lose most of our natural light here before long. See if we can get that to focus in for you guys. It needs to learn to focus in a little bit lower light. Okay, let's see if I want to, not sure if that's helpful or not. Okay, so what do we want to put on first? Well, we've got our tension discs, right? I'm going to have to pan back just a bit so you guys can see me, what I'm doing. So I've got the two discs and they're happy. Now I'm going to take those discs, and if you guys remember, I got to get a little bit better angle here. If you guys remember, we have the outer shell. It's like a cover, right? And it has this little pin that's going to be going in the hole at 12 o'clock there. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to take the shell, and the first thing I'm going to do is put in my first tension discs. Now remember, the concave part goes down, and the convex, or the part that sort of pushes out on that disc, it raises up like the top of a donut, okay? And then the next one goes in the opposite. It faces this one, again, with the concave, the part that sinks in there is going on top. So now we have our little sandwich. Now you got to hold these together, don't let go or they'll go rolling on the floor. Now that I've got these, right, what do I need to do? I need to go back to my check spring, because my check spring is going to go on with these discs. So before we try to do that, I mean, we can. I've seen people do this before, but the best way to do this is what I'm basically showing you here. So remember, as I showed you guys when we were taking it off, this is like a sleeve, right? So you can see, if you see it in profile, there's the check spring from above, and you can see it has a little sort of arm that juts out and around. That's going to be on the front of your disc cover, right? And now you'll see that the rest of the spring, the bulk of it, is on the back side of the tension disc, just like it was when we took them off. So we've got these things lined up, and you kind of have to hold them, pretend you're holding a sandwich here. Now, we know that this pin is going to go in at 12 o'clock. So remember, I want my check spring to be up. I'm going to say my check spring is pointing around 10 o'clock, and that's where I want it to live. Okay? So now watch. Let me get this zoom going for you guys. See if this will give you a little bit better view. So I've got my little sandwich here. Now you want to do this carefully. You don't want to damage the spring, but of course the spring is like a tube, and it's going to slip right over the shaft there. And if everything is lined up, and you'll have to kind of wiggle it to make sure. And by the way, if your check spring moves, it's actually movable while you're here. So you can adjust it while you're moving down this shaft. And then when that pin goes, now the pin is in, and let's see where our check spring is. Right there, right? Okay, so this is about where I want my check spring. Okay, what goes in next? You guys remember? It is the dial that has the plus and the minus, and it's going to go on the reverse of how it came off, or it's going to be in the same position. So you want the open side of this dial, the deep open side, facing you, and of course you want the plus sign on the right. And you're not going to have to worry about lining this up, because again, you can see that center piece goes right through the middle of that threaded shaft, and it pushes right up against there. Next we have our beehive spring. And remember, as I mentioned in the earlier video when we took it off, make sure that the very top of the spring looks like a teacup, right? So you have the bowl shape on the bottom. Don't do it like the letter E. You want it this way. And of course, as that beehive spring goes on, notice that this very last top part of the spring is the part that goes through the center of that threaded shaft, right? So it has its own place to live. Next up we have, this is almost so tiny it's hard to see. Remember, this is the stop washer, and there's a reason why this washer exists, and it'll make more sense in a minute when we put the rest of it together. But make sure that that little ear at the top it has a curve to it. And you want to make sure, I don't think it's going to focus for me, make sure that it faces you, okay? Don't put it with the little ear facing toward the machine, because it only goes one way. You want that ear kind of curling. Let's see if I can get this in there. Yeah, you want it in this position, not that position, okay? So make sure that it's like this when it's facing you. And of course, that little centerpiece goes through the middle of that threaded shaft, and it sits right there on top of the spring. And last but not least, well, what am I saying? That's not last. We're going to put our number dial on. Do you guys remember the order it went on? Of course, it's going to go on with the 0. Now, this doesn't have a piece to rest on the center shaft because it needs to move. Okay? Now, notice on the very back of this numbered dial, there is a notch. You guys see it there? It's right about 3 o'clock. Okay? That notch is important. That notch needs to live to the right of the little ear that's on the top of your washer. Okay? And that's going to allow it to turn. And then it'll stop. If you put it to the left, if that little notch behind this numbered dial is to the left of the ear of the little washer, then it won't work and you'll be frustrated. So make sure that that notch